Let's go!
I feel like I'm a very smart player.
Does Patrick Payton solve Brian Kelly's pass rush issue? Brayton Swinson out the door. As many of you know, he was absolutely phenomenal. And today, at the end of this video, we'll answer a very important question. Is this the best defensive transfer portal bring in for this crop? So you'll see right here, Patrick Payton has an array of pass rush moves. This offensive tackle oversets, leans, he spins to the inside, and then has the length to shoestring the quarterback before he could break contain. So this is a very awkward play against the run, and he is unblocked here. But his balance is ridiculous. Look at this. He squeezes underneath this really big offensive lineman, and he's still able to make the tackle on a decent running back in Phil Maffa. You'll see that a pulling tight end comes around here, and it leaves Patrick Payton in a very advantageous one-on-one position. Once again, if he's going up against tight ends, he whips him almost every single time. Good rip move right here to force a lot of pressure and get this completion for a huge negative gain, right? That's just really, really, really good stuff. Obviously, he couldn't quite bring him down. Castellanos, ironically, that's a portal play. Payton now with LSU, that QB is now Florida State's QB. So Payton's best attribute when it comes to deflecting passes, or in this case, kicks, he is as good as it gets, right? For some reason, some of it is just luck, but a lot of it is just his ball skills. He is really good at getting in an alley to deflect passes. All right, so 4th and 2, game on the line right here. And guess what? Clemson has exactly what they want, right? Double slants versus man-to-man coverage. And if you deflect this pass, it ends the game. Once again, all right, I want you to see this. All right, you'll see that Klubnik sees Patrick Payton is in the window, but you notice he didn't actually time his jump correctly, and he was still able to partially deflect this pass and end the game. Really, really, really good stuff. All right, here he is going up against Emory Jones, so a professional offensive tackle. Obviously, this Jaden Daniels guy turned out to be okay. Once again, right in the passing lane and just bats it straight up into the air. I have watched football for a very long time. I don't remember a college defensive lineman better than that. And the thing about some of his bats is oftentimes it deflects directly up into the air, which can only be a good thing for the defense, right? That leads to interceptions. And when a ball is batted up this high, there's not going to be an offensive player that's going to be able to run with it after the catch. So it is just ridiculous watching him do this over and over and over again. We get to this play right here versus Clemson, and one thing that you do notice about Payton is when you leave him unblocked, he's going to make you pay, whether you're doing zone read stuff. He just makes plays, and there he is once again deflecting a pass. All right, so here's a big one on 3rd and 7. Florida State underman. This is the undefeated Seminole team. He stops his rush and once again just times it perfectly. And in this instance, the receiver had the DB beaten pretty badly, as you could see. Now, there might have been a safety here. But if that gets completed, this is a football game. But, I mean, it's ridiculous. One area where he really shines are on stunts. This is a twist stunt to the inside. LSU's going to be doing a lot of this, right? So they brought in Jamari Butler. If you want to see the film study on Jamari Butler, he was involved in a lot of twists and in a lot of situations, whereas an end, you're actually playing essentially defensive tackle and you're getting a matchup versus a guard or a center. So you can see they don't pass this stunt off clean, and Payton is able to get through the middle here and get his hands on the football, right? This would have been a bang-bang 3rd and 6 play, but this forces a punt. So in studying Payton, one thing I wish I would have seen more of is him just beating an offensive tackle one-on-one, and that's what he does here. But there's not a whole lot of edge bending where he's just beating a guy to the punch. Now, this technically qualifies as that because this offensive tackle just gets absolutely mauled right here by Payton. It does help that Jared Verse is also collapsing this pocket. That's why, he was a big-time rookie this year in the NFL. But this is something I would have liked to have seen a little bit more with Payton. Now, this will sound like a put down, but it's really not, because some ends struggle with this. Payton is really good when he's going up against tight ends, okay? So here are two of the better tight ends. This is Georgia's Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. So he makes Delp miss, and then he is flying around this edge right here. He makes Lucky miss, and Carson Beck trying to throw a bomb. Look at what he does. Bang! Able to get the strip sack right here and the fumble recovery, okay? Or he barely missed out on the fumble recovery. This will also sound strange. Payton is very good at the shoestring tackle, right? There are so many instances where he is bringing guys down by their feet, right? It is hard to make these plays. And in the open field, right, if he gets around there, obviously it's probably still a negative yardage play, but that's an extra 5 yards when you're able to bring him down clean like that.
I know the ins and outs of the defense.
All right, so there are some downsides to his game. He's not the absolute biggest guy, and normally when he's unblocked, whether it's a zone read or a reverse or anything, he's a pretty deadly player. But watch what actually happens here, okay? So he does a good job, obviously, carrying out his assignment, boxing everything in. But what can happen is, because he's not the biggest guy, he could get ragdolled at times, right? So you can see he loses his balance, and he gets put to the turf right here on this run play. Now, once again, he carried out his assignment, but obviously in the SEC, everybody's just so much bigger, faster, and stronger. So one area where he does struggle some is just bending an edge. Now, once again, I could get into a long debate about offensive tackles and where they actually line up. So this helmet is supposed to be even with the hip pad of the center, so it makes it that much harder if they are given this extra bit of depth to actually turn the corner here. But even with that said, as an edge bender, that's not necessarily his strong suit. Sometimes his pad level could get a little high, and he can get a little stiff and static with his moves. And you'll see that this is not a spot where we want him pretty much dead center on an offensive lineman, because strength isn't necessarily his strongest suit either. And that kind of started to show itself last year when he played, because these types of rushes are more effective when this side is being collapsed. Now, what changed from 2023 to 2024? Well, Jared Verse wasn't this guy. So if Jared Verse is pushing this tackle back, it helps you out as well. So you'll see that he's just kind of caught up right here with this move, and the tackle just has him absolutely cooked right there, even though this ends up being an incompletion. So what do we make of Patrick Payton? Well, let's be honest, okay? We mixed in a good bit of his 2023 highlights. So not this past year, but the year before. And remember the play we just showed you where it was tough for him to collapse that pocket? Well, right here, he himself does a better job of bull rushing versus 62, who really wasn't that good of a right tackle. But you see here to the left side that the pocket is being collapsed here from the rest of the Florida State defensive line. So while Payton is indeed whipping this right tackle, all of this being collapsed in helps. So with Payton, for him to truly be effective, for him to reach his ceiling, you're going to need Pyburn, you're going to need McKinley and all those guys to step up as well, because he is a very collaborative pass rusher, whether it's pushing in a pocket or twisting around. But as a simple, I am bending the edge, beating you off the jump right tackle, or defensive end or edge player, whatever you want to call it, I don't think he's that type of player. Now, he can be. He obviously has the skill set to do that, but I don't think this is necessarily a one-for-one switch with Braden Swinson, who was indeed a very good edge bender when it comes to getting around and making plays. So I'm going to give you the pros and cons after watching a good bit of his 2023 and 2024. One thing you didn't see today was his 2022 film. So he was a 2021 recruit. He redshirted in his first season. And then in 2022, when he actually played, he was the newcomer of the year in the ACC. The first is his PFF grades are very, very volatile. So last year was by far his worst year per PFF grading. But not only is that the case, but when you look from a week-to-week basis, the grades are also very volatile. You'll see a lot of elite grades, and then you also see some not-so-great grades. The next thing I would also bring up is I don't think Patrick Payton really wanted to be at Florida State. And I'm not just saying that because the team last year was an absolute abject disaster. But even before the season began, I listened to a few of his interviews. You could tell that he was kind of on the fence about coming back to Florida State last year. And it makes a lot of sense, right? 2023 ended with a very sour taste in everyone's mouth. All those players opted out of the bowl game. Patrick Payton did not. But then he thought about going to the NFL. Then he decided to come back. Then in the portal. And he shared in an interview, I think it was with Will Compton, Busted with the Boys, that there was some NIL stuff regarding coming back to Florida State last year. So now he gets a fresh start. And look, you can talk to as many people as you want at Florida State. I actually have. Their opinions on him is mixed, right? They felt last year wasn't his best, which is true. I would agree with that. But, man, the positives for me outweighs the negative. Even though there are some of those red flags that you see here, I cannot get over how underrated batted passes are when it comes to college football. I think it affects the quarterback more than we would like to think when you have an edge that plays with that much length and is in the passing lane. Because the one thing about a batted ball, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, I've never seen an end bat passes better than Patrick Payton at the collegiate level, is that it leads to turnovers. It leads to very negative things, and it can disorient a quarterback, especially quarterbacks that will play next year that like to get very involved with quick games, like quick slants, quick screens. Payton is really, really, really good at that because of his length, because of his playmaking instincts. It truly is there, and that also applies to twists and stunts that you can run with them. So, for me, I like this bring. Obviously I love this bring in. Right, the potential is really through the roof. But I would like to see hopefully a more refined pass rush game, and I would like to also see how he holds up against the run, going up against, to me, probably better offensive tackles in the SEC next year. But when it comes to running and chasing guys down, right here he actually didn't bring the QB down, but he almost did. I'm telling you, the guy has some real ability. And one thing I'm really going to like about him going to LSU is that Kevin Peoples is going to be his coach. And we saw what Kevin Peoples did last year. He made every end on our team better. So Payton getting this coaching, it's going to be hard coaching. Peoples is a different style of coach. If he takes the coaching well, I literally could see another 8-sack season from Patrick Payton. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do, and we'll see where it goes from here. Love it. Let's do it, Patrick. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Tonight we are doing I'm DJing a party. I think it's like some finger food, so I'm going to need to get me some sustenance.